How are you? Yeah, welcome to the live cast, folks. Not bad for 63, eh? Some of you are going, you're only 63? Actually, to celebrate my birthday, I did a half marathon. That was about 10 days ago, 10 days ago. And one of the things I learned is, if I want to be able to give back to my community, I have to give to myself first, bottom line. So what we're going to talk about today is the Delaney factor. And let's get the slide up here. The Delaney factor is, oh my goodness, I got to tell you, as I get older, I do lose my breath a little bit more, but it's disgusting. You only had to do it for 3 seconds, and then you got to sit down. It's like, somebody bring me a chair. Discover how to overcome any obstacle and achieve more than you dreamed possible. Now, I like to do interactive keynotes. Is that okay with you? Okay. And I promised to give away a $2,500 package. It's a business consulting package. I have a multiple six-figure business. I'm a business consultant in the online space. I teach experts how to write books. Who would like to be able to get trained by me? Okay, stand up if you want to if you'd like to win the prize. Okay, go ahead and sit down. And who doesn't want to win the prize? Stand up. And he is the winner! No. Okay, since I just had a birthday, and I want to find out if there are any other May babies in here, does anybody have a birthday today? Does anybody have a birthday within a day of today? Who? And what is your name? Jake. Jake? And how old did you turn? 47. You had to think about that. Okay. Were you out at the bar too late last night, Jake? Okay, Jake, you're the winner. You're the winner. It's that simple. It's that simple. Now, as I share information, I'm going to share what the Delaney factor is, and you're going to find out what is the Delaney factor. It's all based on a rescue dog. And Delaney is the reason that I'm here today. And I'll be sharing a little bit about Delaney. But one of the things, and you might want to write this down because I give you a lot of great information. I do what I call downloads. And if I'm in a real corporate environment, I say, I do what I call strategies, but they are downloads. How many of you know what a download is? Okay, it's basically you just have information that comes to you. In order to succeed, you must show up. You might want to write that down. In order to succeed, you must show up. Because it's amazing how many people will want to achieve something and they never show up. And a few years ago, I actually had an idea that I wanted to get in good shape because I was about 50 pounds heavier than I am right now. I was doing really well in my business. My business was in a slump, or I was in a slump physically. And I thought, okay, what I need to do is exercise. And I'm driving down the road, and on the radio, that was back before I was using Sirius radio, on the radio, this voice comes on and says, do you feel like you're in a slump? Yeah. Do you feel like you need to get in top physical shape? Yeah. Do you like to do good things for other people? I thought, yeah. Well, then you want to come and join Team in Training. Team in Training is a part of the Lymphoma Leukemia Society. It's actually an organization that was started many years ago by a gentleman who had a daughter at the age of 2 who was diagnosed with leukemia. Very, very serious situation for his daughter. And he was a marathoner, and he decided that he was going to raise funds for his daughter to help bring awareness to her condition and conditions of children like her. And he got a group of his friends together, and they all decided to race money. And the first year, they raised about $25,000. In the last few decades since it started, they've raised $1.9 billion because they had a cause. So I joined in. I thought, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do the race. Started training. And I remember the first training day. The coach said, go and walk a mile. I was only going to do power walking at the time. She said, go walk a mile. And so I'm with this other woman, and we're walking, and we're walking, and we're walking. And I said, I think she lied to us. I think this is longer than a mile. And it wasn't. It was a mile. I was so out of shape that walking a mile was just really taxing on me. But I committed 100%, like I do to most things. I gave 100% to it. And I was training, and I was getting in shape, and I was dropping the weight, and I was starting to do 2, 3, 4, 5 miles. And then life had a different plan for me than I had for myself. It was on the 8th mile of a training day that I started pushing myself faster. And my intuition was saying, don't go that fast. But my ego was saying, go that fast. Have you ever had that happen where your ego says one thing and your intuition says something else, and you listen to your ego, and all of a sudden something happens? This was the something. I literally heard my ankle snap as I walked into a pothole or ran into a pothole. And I was really frustrated, and I thought, this isn't fair. And what I realize is sometimes life isn't fair. There are things that happen in life that often we don't understand it at the time, and yet when it happens in hindsight, we can look at it and say, that was in perfect timing, that was divine intervention. The first thing I did after I went to the doctor and got some really good drugs, I was laying on the couch with my leg propped up, and I was thinking, I wonder if I can monetize this. How many of you currently monetize your blog? Raise your hand if you monetize your blog. How many of you would like to monetize your blogs? Okay. How many of you didn't understand the question? Monetize means you make money. I was talking to somebody earlier who actually monetizes her blog, and when I asked, do you monetize your blog, her first response was no. I make money on my blog that I donate. That is monetizing your blog. You may use your blog as a way to do good for the pet industry. Whatever area that you're most focused on, that is monetization. And please write this down. The more I monetize, this is worth writing down. The more I monetize, the more good I can do for the community of pets. Bottom line. Because without money, you can't do all that you want to do. So the first thing I thought is, I wonder if I can monetize this. And I wrote a blog post. And I said, can you make money when you break your ankle? And I ran a special on a report that I had written about a year before. And I sold it for about 80% off. And I said, yes, you can. I'm doing it right now. I ended up in a matter of about 48 hours making $4,000 or $5,000. Now, I don't say that to impress you, but to impress upon you how important it is for you to have products and services that you can use to generate revenue for your blog, for your business, for the community of animals that you're most interested in. And I hope that I did impress you with that amount, because it's amazing what kind of money you can make for the pet industry, for whatever it is that you have a passion for, if you're willing to put yourself out there. Now, one of the things that I do know about entrepreneurs is oftentimes they're afraid to put themselves out there. Often, it was interesting going through the room and watching the people who were looking down thinking, I hope she doesn't look at me. I hope she doesn't look at me. And what did I do? I got in your face. Because I want you to play full out. It's really about playing full out. Now, what's interesting about this whole experience with my ankle was within a few weeks, my mother had been telling me my father was falling down a lot, and he was forgetting things quite a bit. And he was leaving the stove on, and he was leaving the refrigerator open, and just things that were not normal for him. And he was getting angry at her. My dad was not an angry man. My dad was a very loving, kind, and gentle man. And I recommended that she take him to emergency because he had had a fall. She took him to emergency. She didn't drive. My nephew had to take her. And they did a scan on his brain and found out that his brain had so many lesions on it, they couldn't even count the number of lesions. I immediately packed up my car. We live in Oregon. My parents were living in Citrus Heights, California at the time. Packed up my car, headed down to be with my mom when we went to see the oncologist. The oncologist said it was one of the worst cases of stage 4 cancer he had ever seen. My dad was infested through his lungs, his brain, through his entire body. And they said maybe a year, 2 years on the outset. 4 weeks later, my dad had passed away. My mother didn't know how to write a check. She didn't know how to drive. She didn't know how to take care of some basic needs that most women do know how to take care of. And so I want to, first of all, acknowledge the love of a good spouse and partner that gave me the space to go do what I needed to do to be with my mother as she became very, very ill for the next 2 years. And during that time, not once did our revenues dip, because I had set my business up in a way that we could actually make money by me sitting by my mom's hospital bedside, generating information products. And I created, and I created, and I created. And it was during that time that I realized that often life will give to us more than we think we can handle. And if we just do what's in front of us, we find out that we actually have a different purpose. Go back on that one, please. Circumstances don't make the man, they only reveal him to himself. Now, it could be circumstances don't make the woman, they only reveal her to herself. It was at that time I was able to see what I was made of, what Karen was made of, what my mom was made of, what my friends were made of, what my community was made of. It was pretty interesting. It was also at that time that I realized that one of the comforts that was brought to Karen during that time were the animals that we have. Now, this is... They were born that way. No. This is actually Aries, and this is Max. And Aries was a boxer rescue. He was the first of many rescues that we had. He actually was, he was born right around the corner from where we lived, and we told the woman, if you have babies, if this other boxer has babies, we definitely want one. And so we actually got Aries, and Aries, where do you think his name came from? Anybody watch Xena, Princess Warrior? Yeah, it was Aries yeah, Karen loved that show. And anyway, we had Aries, and this was Max. Well, Max had Dominatrix. Dominatrix was a little Yorkie Terrier. Dominatrix, yeah, she was kind of dominant. And that'll be in my memoir where that name came from if you want to read it. Okay, but anyway, anyway, Max had lost Dominatrix. She died of old age, and he was starting to grieve, so we actually were fortunate enough to be able to get Aries as a companion to Max. They were inseparable. That was the first of our series of animals that we rescued. This is another picture. They literally were inseparable. This is Bucky the goat. Bucky the goat actually was found at a garage sale. And now, how many of you would go to a garage sale saying, I think I'm going to look for a goat. I think a goat would be a really good idea. At the time, we were living in Utah. We had been there for 15 years. And we had a convertible. And I hear the horn honking in front of the house, and I see Karen in the back seat of the convertible. Her sister is driving, and Karen's got this goat in her lap. And she's going, look what I got at the garage sale. It's like, really? And she wasn't sure how I would respond, and I was like, oh, that's awesome, a goat. Well, at the time, we also had our first horse. Now, Karen had been wanting horses for quite a while, and when we first were together, we've been together just about 28 years. And yeah, it's been a fair amount of time. And when we first got together, we didn't have the finances to get a horse. It just wasn't in the cards. And so what I did is I bought her a little plastic horse, and I said, if you water this every single day, it'll grow into a real horse. Well, little did I know that that one little horse would grow into 3 that we now have. But, you know, be careful what you say, be careful what you wish for, because it will come true. And here's an image of our horses. This is on our property. And 2 of the 3 are rescues. 2 of the 3 are rescues. And I'll share a little bit about Dustin, the Appaloosa in the middle, in just a little while of how we came to rescue him. But this is Aries. That was the little puppy. This was the day that we found out we had to let him go. Yeah, it was a very difficult time for us. We didn't expect to have to let him go. But with all animals, at some point you do. And he went over the Rainbow Bridge. The thing that we didn't realize was he and Max were so close that Max should have been there for his departure, because then Max would have had resolution and it would have come to a close and everything would have been much different than it was. But at the time, we didn't realize that. This is Storm. Now, Storm was another rescue cat. If somebody were to ask you, is Kathleen Gage into dogs, cats, horses, goats, what would you say? All of the above. Yes, yes, definitely. It's like, it doesn't matter. If it's a four-legged, a three-legged, a two-legged creature, if God sends that creature to me, I'm going to take care of that creature. Well, with Storm, when we first got Storm, came out of a very abusive situation. And we worked out of our home at the time. We worked out of our home for 19 years until about 3 years ago when I actually moved into a physical location. And Storm, when I first had her in the house, I couldn't get near her. She was so frightened, so angry, so petrified to be around anybody or anything. And the dogs literally, when they saw Storm, they would do this number. They weren't going to go near her at all. It turned out that after about 3 months, she and I were inseparable. She was my office cat. She would come and lay at my footsteps. But when we had to let her go, it was very tough. And Karen and I said, you know, that's it. No more. We're not going to do any more rescue. We're not going to adopt anymore. We're just not going to do it. Well, like I said, if you think that you know what's coming, you're probably mistaken. Because the next gift that we were given, this is Delaney. And this is what I've based my conversation on today, the Delaney factor. Delaney came to us on a rainy April day 3 years ago. The day that Delaney came to us, her mom lives on our property. Karen's mom lives on our property. Her mom called Karen up and said, this thing showed up at my doorstep. I don't know what to do with her. And this thing literally dragged herself to her doorstep. She couldn't walk. She had infections in her eyes. She stunk to high heaven. We took her to the groomer while we were waiting for the vet to have a spot for us to go in and talk to the vet about what to do. The groomer cleaned her up, which was a good thing because we discovered that her belly was full of tumors. She had growths all over her belly. It was so rough and rocky that you couldn't even touch her belly, and they were bleeding. So you can well imagine the abuse this poor little girl went through. And what I decided to do was, well, first of all, we went to the vet, and the vet said, you know, this dog isn't going to make it too long. And Karen said, do me a favor, give me some medicine, some painkillers, and some antibiotics, and let's give it hospice for at least a week or two so it can know what love is about. As it turns out, at the time, they estimated Delaney's age to be 8 to 12 years old, with tumors all over her belly. She was flat on one side. She had to drag herself. So what do you assume that Delaney was used for? Breeder dog. She was a breeder dog. And she had not been fixed. And so we said, we'll take her home. Well, she started getting better. And she started getting a little life to her. And we took her back to the vet, and they said, let us run some blood tests. They ran some blood tests. And they said, all things considered, she's in really good shape. If you take the tumors off of her, she'll probably have a pretty good quality of life. And I thought, okay. It was going to cost about $2,000 per surgery. She needed 2 surgeries, and we paid for the first surgery. And then I thought, you know, I actually wonder if my community would help out with this. And I did what was called hoofing it for horses and dogs. And I did it as a fundraiser to raise money for Delaney's surgery. Now, what was interesting, it was at that time that I got a call from a woman by the name of Yvonne DeVita. Yvonne calls up and she goes, hi, I'm Yvonne. I'm with BlogPaws. And I'm like, okay, who's Yvonne and what is BlogPaws? And she said, I saw your fundraiser online and I was wondering, would you come out and speak at BlogPaws? And I said, well, the pet space is not my space. I don't really work within the pet space. And she goes, but you know how to get visibility online, you know how to raise money online, you know how to make money online, and we would be very interested to learn some of those things. Would you be interested in coming out? I'm like, sure, I'll come out. That was the beginning of what has been 3 years of working in the pet space. I've spoken at WIPIN, Women in the Pet Industry. I'll be speaking there in September. I've spoken at IBPSA. I have clients that are in the pet space, all because of little Delaney. All because on that particular day, rather than saying, no, we're not taking this dog, we'll let them put this dog to sleep, that wasn't an option. Have you ever been in that situation where you say, that's just not an option? That was the same with Delaney. And so this is one of her surgeries. I'll take that down really quick, but I just wanted you to see that's how severe it was. This is little Delaney today. Yeah. Oh, you could do better than that. This is Delaney today, and 3 years later, Delaney has us wrapped around her little paw. The Delaney factor, you might want to write this down, what the Delaney factor is. It's letting life put in front of you what you are intended to do, and you answer the calling. It's doing what life puts in front of you, and you answer the calling. It's really quite simple. And what's interesting is so often what we want is we want clear-cut answers. If I do this, I want to know this is going to happen. The reality is we don't know this is going to happen. So one thing that I know is your actions determine your reputation no matter what you say about yourself. We can say how great we are, we can say how ethical we are, we can say we have integrity, and yet in many cases, other people don't see it that way. And in other cases, they say, you know what? You are a pretty amazing person. We're going to bypass some of the rules and let you have X, Y, and Z. A great example is with our horse, Dustin. Dustin, on the upper left-hand corner, came out of an experience where in Bend, Oregon, or in Burns, Oregon, there was a drop-off of horses that were being taken down to Mexico. It was during the time that there was the gas prices were going up, and people would take horses down to Mexico for the obvious reasons, and it was not to give them a good life. And Dustin came out of a rescue where several of the mares were impregnated by an Appaloosa stud. At the drop-off, there were 106 horses. When they were found, 40 were alive. That's how bad the situation was. Our neighbor Randy was fostering the mare. He didn't even know that she was pregnant at the time. They found out she was, and she was very skittish. Nobody could get close to her except Karen. Every day, Karen would go over there and love on this horse and build her trust and gain the relationship. When Dustin was born, the morning that he was born, Karen went over there at 3 o'clock in the morning and was able to hold him and cuddle him and love him. As it turns out, the woman who ran the rescue that picked up the 40 horses, Sandy, she would come over to Randy's house, and Karen talked to her one day, and Sandy said, yes, I have a rescue, and it's such and such. And Karen goes, you know, I've been donating to this one rescue, and I'm not quite sure the name. And Sandy goes, is it Emerald Valley Equine Assistance? And she goes, as a matter of fact, it is. As it turns out, Karen had been donating money for quite some time with no expectation of ever rescuing a horse from this organization. They needed to place all the babies. All the babies that had been born, they needed to place. And Karen said, I would really like to adopt that horse. And Sandy says, we can bypass a lot of the red tape that normally we have to put people through because I already know the quality of person you are. Your reputation precedes you. What you do, no matter what environment you're in, makes a huge difference. The other day we were on the boardwalk, and Bryn is, where is Bryn? She's way in the back. Okay, she's in the Pathfinders, and she and I had talked on the phone, and Karen and I are having a great time on the beach. And sometimes I get a little edgy, like when Uber doesn't show up. You know, it's like I get a little edgy. And fortunately, we hadn't had the Uber experience yet of not showing up, and we're walking down the boardwalk, and we see this woman with a really cool T-shirt on, and Karen goes, "Nice T-shirt," and we start chatting with her, and she goes, "Oh, you're Kathleen Gage." I said, "Yeah, who are you?" "I'm Bryn, I'm in Pathfinders," and one thing leads to another, and we hug each other, and she goes on her way, and we go on our way, and I said, "Oh, thank God I wasn't in one of my pissy moods." Because can you imagine if she would have seen me getting upset at an Uber driver, or getting upset with a server, or getting upset, or doing something that was inappropriate? And oftentimes we do that. We have one face to the public, and we have a whole different face privately. What you do in private, and this is definitely a writer down, what you do in private will be rewarded for in public. I got that from Suzanne Evans. What you do in private will be, that's right, will be rewarded for in public. Another thing you want to consider doing is you want to polarize your audience. And some people are so afraid of polarizing. They're so afraid of people not liking them. They're so afraid of somebody saying, "I didn't like that blog post you did," or "I don't like the fact that you're a dog person and you should be a cat person," or "I don't like the fact that you belong to this organization and not this one." The reality is this is a community. And the more we work as a community, the more good that we can do. And so it's really about unifying what we do and realizing we need to polarize. We also need to do in private what we want to be rewarded for in public. Missions become movements. Missions and movements are started by average people with an idea. Not all movements are world-renowned, but all world-renowned movements start with an idea. Here's one of my heroes, Tia Torres. I love Tia Torres. I love this woman. I've never met her, but I have sent money to her. I wrote about her in my book. I was influenced by her about the breed of pit bulls. I never in my wildest dreams knew that pit bulls were as loving as they are. And it was because of Tia Torres that when the opportunity to rescue a pit came along, I was able to answer the call. These are just pictures I got off the internet. They're cute. But this is the dog that was influenced by Tia Torres. This is Chance. As it turns out, Chance was a bait dog. And Chance was found in a ditch near dead. And shortly after we lost Aries, Max, the terrier mix, started grieving and grieving and grieving. He would howl in the middle of the night. And it was like, what do we do? Well, we have to get him a companion. So we took him down to the Humane Society, and he was the one who was going to make the decision. It wasn't going to be our decision. Have you ever done that with your pets? You know, it's like, yeah. How many of you have ever done that? Okay. It's like you let them make the decision because it's going to be their companion more than anything. So we go down to the Humane Society, and there's all these cute little puppies and all these wonderful dogs. And the woman running the shelter, she goes, "We do have one dog, but we don't think he's adoptable." And his name was Hanson at the time. Karen went and looked at him. She comes back and she goes, "Well," she goes, "there is one that I think could work, but he's a pit bull." I said, "Well, let's go see him." And we took Max with us. We put them in the cage together, and they fell in love. Fell in love. And the indicator was Max is ball crazy. Have you ever had a dog that's like totally ball crazy and that dog will not share their ball with anything? Max actually took his ball and put it in front of Chance. Chance picked it up and put it in front of Max, and we're like, they're dating! Oh! They're little gay dogs! Look at that! Isn't that cute? And so we said we want to take him home. Well, as it turns out, Carl's been waiting to come up and take a picture. He was going to come up and take a picture. Come on up, Carl. Can we have a hand for Carl? This is Carl, our photographer. Yeah. Carl said, now, come on up, Carl. He said, we're going to have some fun on the stage. We're going to do a few natural poses. First, we're going to do a selfie. Okay?
Are you ready?
Yeah. Don't mind us.
There you go.
Okay, now we're going to do a few natural poses. Now, over here.
We need
no.
cameras.
Oh, no, of me. Of
Oh,
me. Okay, that was as natural as it gets. Okay, so, thank you. Give Carl a hand. Has he not been doing a great job? Yeah, okay. So, we found, can we put Chance's picture back up? We found Chance at the Humane Society, and they have a lot of red tape that you have to go through in order to adopt a dog. As it turns out, now this is where I say your reputation precedes you. As it turns out, the vet that stitched him back together happened to be the vet that we go to in our small farming community. We didn't know she was the vet that worked on him. She heard that there were 2 women from Pleasant Hill who wanted to adopt this dog. And she said, are their names Kathleen and Karen? She said, bypass all the paperwork, just do the minimum, get them the dog. They've deserved it. We got Chance, we renamed him to Chance, took him to our vet for a checkup, to the place where we take him, and it turns out he has a bullet in his shoulder. He had heartworm at the time. They said contain him, and we thought this dog cannot be contained. So we started the treatment for him with heartworm, but we wouldn't contain him because we just felt he needed to have a more free type life. And he is now heartworm free. Yeah, he's heartworm free. He still has the bullet in his shoulder because they said don't take it out. It would do more harm than good to take it out. And so you can imagine the abuse that he went through, but now he's living the life. Now, I have to tell you that Chance has more clothes than I do. All my dogs have more clothes than I do. It's like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So it's not what happens, it's what you do that makes all the difference. It's not what happens, it's what you do that makes all the difference. I first heard this from Tony Robbins. He was sharing the story about a man named W. Mitchell. Has anybody here ever heard of W. Mitchell? W. Mitchell, at the age of 19 years old, had it all going on. He was engaged to be married. He had a job with FedEx. He was doing great. He had a good job. He had a good life. And he just bought a motorcycle that day. Went out on a ride on his motorcycle. A truck, a laundry truck, broadsided him, hit his truck. The gas cap on the Honda that he was riding flipped open, poured gas all over his body, and he was burned over 80% of his body. If that wasn't enough, it took him months and months and months and months to recover from that. And they had to take his fingers off because they were burned off, his toes off. I mean, he was in pretty bad shape. He decided to use the insurance settlement of $500,000. Now, you can imagine it was quite a while ago to only get $500,000. He used the insurance settlement to start a business in Colorado, a wood-burning stove business. True story. He also decided to pursue a passion that he had to become a pilot, but he had a difficult time finding anybody who would train somebody to be a pilot who had no fingers. And he finally found somebody who put him through the certification. He became a pilot. He started a business where he would fly people from a very exclusive area in Colorado to the Bay Area and back and forth. One day when he was taking his plane up to do a flight, he did the usual safety check. Something went horribly wrong, and the plane went down. And all he thought of was the gas that he was smelling. And he thought, I cannot let these people go through what I went through. And he desperately tried to get out. He couldn't move. He was now a quadriplegic. When I heard the story of W. Mitchell, I set the intention that I wanted to meet him. I wanted to meet this man who was so unique that nothing could stop him. Did he like it? Not necessarily, but nothing was going to stop him. And I set the intention that I wanted to meet this man. And when I first joined National Speakers Association back in 1994 or 95, I was doing a breakout session with about 10 people in the session, and I was talking about this man, W. Mitchell, that I wanted to meet. I had no clue that he was at the conference. And somebody said, you know, he's at the conference right now. And I said, oh my gosh, I want to meet this man. Just then, the door opened up, and in wheels W. Mitchell. He comes into my session. And I was a wreck. I was like, oh my gosh, this man is my idol. I wanted to meet him. And so I'm telling my story about how I want to meet W. Mitchell. And after he said, why don't you come outside with me? And he wheeled out, and I had my hand on his shoulder. And he said, I want to tell you something, Kathleen, and I want you to tell as many people as possible. You're perfect the way you are. You're perfect the way you are. For somebody like him to tell me that, it's believable. You're perfect the way you are. And we must always remember that, no matter where we're at in life, no matter what we're doing. When I've been watching these videos of Hope for Paws, I'm looking going, I'm doing nothing. I'm doing nothing. I'm rescuing a few dogs, a few cats, a few horses. I'm doing nothing. Am I doing something? Absolutely. But how often do we compare other people's successes with what we're doing, and we minimize what we're doing? We mustn't compare ourselves with others. We can only compare ourselves with who we are and raise our own bar and our own standard by putting ourselves in environments that force us to do better. Intention is more important than details when you begin. A few months ago, I actually had a mastermind with a group of my clients. And I was talking about the importance of blogging and that you should blog every day, and let's do a 30-day challenge. And one of my clients said, would you be willing to blog for 30 days nonstop? And I'm like, oh, shoot. It's like, I don't know. And she said, if you're serious about this, join in with us, and I want you to sign it. And I thought, ooh, that's a challenge. So I took the 30-day challenge. For 30 days non-stop, I wrote a blog post every single day, no matter what. It was a priority. I've often had people say, how do you get to be so productive? How have you written so many books? How have you created so many information products? It's one word: prioritize. Prioritize what you're doing. Make it important. Make it something that you cannot not do. A few months ago, I was at a mastermind in San Diego with Sandra Yancey from eWomen Network. She said something that really resonated with me. Something triggered. And I've been thinking about writing a memoir for 10 years. Right there and then, I wrote in my journal, I will finish 60,000 words in 60 days. Is that a lot of words? Good. Does anybody think that's not a lot of words? I want to talk to you. And so what I did is every single day for 60 days, I wrote. And at first, it was going to be 500 to 1,000 words. And I thought, if I'm going to get 60,000 words, I can't write 500. I have to write 1,000. And so there were days that I would wake up literally at 1:30 in the morning. That was like the golden time. 1:30, I would wake up and I would write. And I would do my download, and then I'd go back to bed. And I posted something on Facebook, and I had people who were going to help me with my insomnia. It's like, oh, you don't get it. This is not insomnia. This is priority. The book is now at my editor's. She's going through the first draft. It'll come back to me. Then it goes to my publisher. We're going to do a November launch. We're doing a massive, massive launch. And had I not made the commitment to do it every single day and make that a priority and put other things aside, that's the big issue. It's all about intentions and putting other things that are not that important aside. That's when you get the results that you're looking for. One of the things that I was really impacted by the other day how many of you were here for the presentation on, what night was that? Wednesday night. On Wednesday night. How many of you were impacted by that conversation about abused women and their animals being left behind? I was completely impacted by that. And the reason I was is you'll read about it in my memoir. In my marriage, I was in an abusive relationship. I was abused, I was subjected to things that no woman should be subjected to, and I stayed out of fear. And it took me years to be able to talk about it, and now it's going in a book. And when I heard the woman present on Wednesday night about her experience and what happens to animals, I said, I need to tell my story more. I need to tell people that it happened to me too. I also lived under a bridge at one point in my life. By choices that I made around drugs and alcohol, I've been 33 years sober now. Thank you. So all my friends, as soon as I come to a conference, they say, "You don't drink, do you? Do you have those drink tickets? Could I have those, please?" That's the only reason I have friends. They all want my drink tickets. So it's like, hey, I got leverage. But the reality is that because of my drinking, I ended up in situations that were not the safest situations. I ended up on the streets, literally on the streets. I lived under bridges, literally under bridges. And so when I see homeless people, I have some empathy for them of understanding a mindset that maybe other people might not understand. Some of you understand that mindset. Some of you understand the mindset of what it is to be in a situation where it doesn't seem there's any way out. And oftentimes it's fear that keeps us where we're at. And so it's really looking at actually, could you go back to that one slide about the pause? Here's my challenge to you. How many of you are up to a good challenge? Raise your hand if you're up to a good challenge. Okay, put your hands down. How many of you are not up to a good challenge? Okay, thank you for your honesty. You can leave. No, just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. Here's what I'd like to do. I'm going to invite all of you to make a commitment that once a week for the next 12 weeks, you take something from this conference. Now, I'm trying to make it as easy as possible because if you were my client and you were paying me a lot of money, I would say once a day. So you're not paying me, so I will do this once a week. Okay? Is that fair enough? Once a week, for the next 12 weeks, take something from BlogPaws about anything that is community related and blog about it and have links back to those, like this particular organization. It could be Hope for Paws, it could be BlogPaws, it could be, and always tag BlogPaws in it. Would you do that? How many of you are willing to do it? If you are, stand up. If you are, stand up. Please stand up if you're willing to do that. Okay. Now, there's a part of me that if you were my client, I'd say, are you flipping kidding me? Once a week for 12 weeks, you're not willing to do that? And yet I know you have other commitments. So thank you for those of you who stood up. Appreciate that. But I want you to look at where you're setting your priorities and how important is this organization to what's happening in the animal community. I am forever indebted to Yvonne for inviting me here. I am forever indebted to Yvonne for inviting me here because my life has been changed by being a part of the pet industry. One thing I do know is you have to make a decision to play big. No one can run the race for you. In the last 3 years, for my 61st birthday, I decided to do a full marathon. And I did it. And I hold the distinction of being the last person in 2015 for the Eugene Marathon. It took me 8.5 hours. At mile 19, I was going to quit. And I had a woman who I hired as a coach. She was a better marathoner than she was a coach because at mile 19, she came up to me, Karen's on her bicycle, encouraging me to keep going. And I'm ready to quit. And she knew how hard I had been training. And my coach says, 19 miles is respectable. Karen goes, the hell it is. Thank you very much. She said, you will get your ass in gear, and I don't care if you crawl across the finish line. You made a commitment, you're going to do it. It was also tied into the hoofing it for dogs and horses. I had to do it. I made a commitment to my community, I made a commitment to the animals, but most of all, I made a commitment to myself. If I didn't do it, that would have set the tone for what was to come next. The next year, I did another full marathon. It took me 7 hours and 5 minutes. I improved my time. Still the last one in, but I improved my time. This year, for my 63rd birthday, I thought, I want to see if there's people actually in the stands when people come in. So I did a half marathon. And I started crying because there were people in the stands. It's like, oh my God. And I probably finished in the amount of time it took most people to do a full marathon, but I finished. And it was great. But the thing you want to look at, here's from the Eugene Marathon. The thing you want to look at is, are you doing all you can to walk through fear? After my mom died, it was 2 years after I started taking care of her, she passed away. And on her deathbed, she made me make a commitment to her that I would live fully. She said, go out and do what you're here to do. She goes, I'm so proud of the woman that you've become. And in celebration, Karen and I decided to go to Hawaii and honor my mom's memory. And we listened to Brother Is the whole time we were there. We had a CD listening to that, Over the Rainbow. That was a song that we played at my mom's memorial. And when we got there, we went and saw the concierge, this nice young man that said, oh, girls, I'm going to give you the best time, and it's just going to be wonderful, and it's just going to be a great time, and you're going to go do this, and you're going to do that, and you're going to go on the tour, and you're going to do this, and you're going to zip line. And I said, everything but that. We're not zip lining. And Karen goes, you promised that you would play full out. And I said, okay, I'll zip line. And I was thinking, okay, that's the last night that we're here. Maybe I'll die before that time. That would be really good. Or maybe it'll rain. Well, little did I know in Hawaii it rains all the time, and nothing stops because of the rain. So the day that we get out there, there's 9 zip lines we're going to go on. And the first one was like 1,200 feet across. Not too big, little one. And I went across that, but first I'm standing there, and I'm like, okay, somebody push me. And I went across, and and I got on the other side and said, wow, that was fun. Went on the second one and I did better. Went on the third one and I did better. Went on the fourth one and I did better. And by the 9th one, King Kong, I was an expert. I was pretty darn good. And I said, I'm curious, has anybody ever gotten stuck in the middle on this? Guy goes, oh, no, doesn't happen. So I go, great. And Karen goes, let's go in tandem together. And we were going to hold hands. I said, don't touch me. I am just going to go across, and I'm going to have a good time. So I go across, and before we went, they said, now there's something that you need to remember about this particular rope compared to any other one. When you get to the other side, you grab the rope at the end, you turn your head. Because if you don't, you could knock your teeth out. Grab the rope, turn your head. Grab the rope, turn your head. Grab the rope, turn your head. Okay, I got this down. Okay, so we go and we start going across, and I'm like, yay! And I get to the other side, and Karen's on the other side, and I hear, grab the rope, turn your head, and I'm going backwards, and I'm going, grab the rope, the rope, the rope, the rope! And I'm going back, and I end up in the middle of the rope. The line. And I'm looking down and I'm going, oh, shoot. And I wanted to die. And I'm looking around and I see somebody way off in the distance and going, look, somebody's stuck. And I said, this could be you. And then I thought, oh my gosh, I can't do anything weird because it could end up on YouTube. So I'm standing there thinking, okay, how long do I have to stay calm here? This is like not the funnest thing I've ever done. And I'm looking down, and it's hundreds of feet above the ground, and I'm thinking, hopefully it'll be fast if I drop and I die. I wanted it to be fast. And I'm yelling out to them, hey, you guys, I'm out here, you guys. And they go, we're coming. So this guy, he had to literally get on the rope and move himself out like this to come get me. And he comes up and he says, now put your arms around me and I'll take you to safety. I put my arms around him and I said, dang, I haven't been this close to a man in ages. And he goes, please don't make me laugh. Please don't make me laugh. So we get to the other side. Little by little, we get to the other side. And he said, this is dangerous. He goes, you need to just hold on to me. I get onto safe land, and I said, that was fun. I want to do that again. I had a blast. And what I realized was, in that one situation, I overcame my greatest fear. I have a fear of, normally I couldn't even stand this height. Ziplining got me through that. I have a tremendous fear of heights. And going through that whole experience walked me through the fear. It got me to the other side. What you most fear, the only way it will go away is for you to walk through it. And for you to have a connection to something beyond yourself. That is my own personal belief. I don't care if you call it God, universe, source, whatever you call it, but to have a connection to know there is something beyond us. We have all been led here today This is not by mistake that we're here as a community. I love this community. I thank you so much for bringing me here. And I want you to know, there is no they, there is only you. It's not what you know, it's what you do with what you know. Often we say they should do something, whoever the heck they are. There is no they, it's only you. And this is little Delaney today, rescued and loved forever. But the one challenge with Delaney is that now she thinks she's a superstar. But the really great thing about Delaney is she does her life's work. She has no idea what comes next. She just shows up, and she's her amazing, amazing spirit self. And I encourage all of you to go out and be your amazing, amazing spirit selves. Go out and play big. Don't let fear hold you back. Because if you think that you won't have fear in what you have to do, you will. There's always going to be fear. The bigger you play, the more fear will show up. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I would be here sharing with all of you as I was living under a bridge one day. Never. All I wanted to do was get through the day. I thank my lucky stars. I thank my partner. I thank all of you for being here and allowing me to share my message with you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you to Chloe.
So, as you know, we do donations on behalf of Keynotes, and Kathleen chose the Emerald Valley Equine Horse Rescue, which we all just heard about in her talk, and so they will be getting a $2,000 check in her name.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You're awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Woo! All right. Now hopefully we're feeling motivated. We're feeling good. It's break time. I know some of you want to go to sessions. The exhibit hall does open back up at 2:30, and the cat lounge is open. Don't forget your passport to prizes. Don't forget to stop by and see Pet World Insider and do a video. Don't forget that we have putt-putt in the exhibit hall. If you have not seen that, it's kind of at the end. You can go play putt-putt, and we're giving away gift cards. Visa gift cards, Amazon gift cards, Starbucks gift cards. Go play putt-putt. And lastly, don't forget, tonight is the CWA banquet for anyone attending. That will be after happy hour in the exhibit hall, where we'll award the DSLR camera and the GoPro Hero for passport to prizes. Enjoy your afternoon. Thank you.